We can't tell you how frustrating it was for us to upload our podcast when we first got started. The websites were clunky, we had data limits, and it was all so confusing. That is, until we found Zencastr. Zencastr is an online platform built for podcasters to not only upload their podcasts, track their listeners, connect their audience, and so much more. Zencastr plans have no upload or download limits, so your cost won't grow as you do. Embed their player that automatically updates to show the latest episode of your show. Zencastr lets you see your podcast downloads along with your traffic, website, and Google Analytics. Zencastr also supports multiple podcasts under one account. The best part is, if you already have a podcast on another platform, you can switch to Zencastr with a one-click importer, all free of charge. So what are you waiting for? Head over to howtomakeapodcast.co/Zencastr to start saving time and money with your podcast today. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Make a Podcast. My name is Nick Miller. Sorry for the poor audio and video of this. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I wanted to hop on here and say that I'm so excited about today's episode. We did a podcast challenge a few weeks ago, and one of the days it was such good information. It was all about discovering your niche, finding your niche, and we wanted to share that information on our podcast with all of you. So this episode was from a live challenge we did a couple weeks ago, but it's such great info, we wanted to share it with you. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode of the How to Make a Podcast.
We are back. So Nick, I want to talk it's my first time ever talking about how to film weddings. We started this podcast, How to Film Weddings, 2 years ago today. So that, my friends, in the last 2 years, we have put in so much extra work. And why that is important for you to know is that podcasting and your podcasting journey takes time. And so if you go out and you set out for a destination on a road trip and you're going to drive from one end of the country to the other, but you don't go fill up your gas tank, you're not going to be able to make it. Or if you don't get beef jerky, how are you even going on a road trip without beef jerky? Come on, people. But the point is, we started How to Film Weddings. Nick and I both spit and shook and said, we're going to work hard for 2 years before making any money at all. We're going to do our best to just put the work in, and if it takes us 2 years, that's fine. We gauged our trip and we said we're going to work really hard. Turns out 7 months in, we got monetized, and then we started really building from there. But this is the thing. You have to be willing to put in the effort. It is doable. It is attainable. Podcasting is still growing. It's something that you can do, but you have to be willing to get out there, get off of the sideline, and actually start putting in the work. And Nick, I love this slide. This is true. This is a true statement. Since February, we have made $358,000 as of right now podcasting. And I don't know how to explain to you what that does and how that can change our lives. But like right now, we are at $9,800 plus a month of sponsors, $1,500 a month of affiliate sales. We have a digital product shop where we're averaging over $2,500 a month. And we have done 100, 200K with our course sales and averaging over $6,000 a month of payments with those, and all kinds of other miscellaneous items to where we're bringing in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. And it's starting to blow our mind. But it all started to happen because we started building a niche audience, and that is what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to build a niche audience. Nick, what do you have to add?
Yeah, this is just something that is possible, and this is why we are here this week. Okay, I know it can kind of look like we're flexing and we're saying, oh, look how awesome we are and how great we are. And yeah, we're proud of the stuff that we have done, but we are just two guys that had a little bit of knowledge and started doing something, but we did it the right way. Okay, what would your life look like if you had just one of these income streams? Just one of them. Like not all, just one of them. What could you do with an extra $500 a month, or maybe $1,000 a month? Not even what we're talking about, 20-something thousand, okay? What if you had just a little bit of extra money each month? What could you do with that? Huh? What could you do? How would that change your life? This is a quote by a guy that we really like, and his name is Zig Ziglar. If you've been in business and been in inspiration kind of reading, you probably have heard of him before. And he says this: if you help enough people get what they want, you are going to get what you want. Okay. And he's not trying to be, sneaky or whatever, but he's saying, hey, if you put out something that is genuinely going to help people, if you are going to put out something that will encourage people and move them to where they want to go, then you are going to get something in return from that. We are big believers in this. We give. Yes, we do ask, people to buy from us and purchase things from us, but our hearts are to give and help and to elevate the industry as best as we can. That is exactly what we did. We started helping more and more people each week. It didn't happen overnight. We ran our How to Film Weddings podcast. It was a solid 8 months before we made a dime. And then it was really another 8 more months. It was like 16 months before we cut ourselves money. Like, we were making money, but we were pouring it back into the podcast so that long term we could make something. It took consistency. Every single Monday we dropped a new podcast episode. Every single week we talked about something new. And this is a favorite saying of mine: consistency compounds. Whenever you are consistent over time, if you are consistently consistent, you are just going to build something, and it is going to grow, and it is going to drastically change your life. John, what did I miss?
Nothing. The consistency has been so key for us. I think if you think about it, my favorite show is The Office. And if you disagree, you're probably wrong. You're definitely wrong. But The Office started out, with a pilot season of 6 episodes, and then they got picked up for a second season and then a third. And I found them in the 4th season. They were consistent week after week, year after year, and they were 50 episodes in by the time I found them. But if they would have quit making episodes before that, I would have never found them. And I have so many times seen shows on TV or podcasts that are in their 40 or 50 or 60th episode before I find them. And so if you're consistent, what happens when you find a show like The Office whenever it's airing is you find it, you test it out. If it's good, awesome, content, you want to go back and watch what's already been there. You want to continue. You become a fan. You start becoming a raving fan. You start buying cups with your face on it, like the ones that are in The Office, or you start getting gifts that are The Office, or you start building these loyal niche following fans. And that is what you want. You want a tribe of people. If you think about it, if you have 100 people that just freaking love you and love your podcast, and each one of them spent $1,000 this year on products that you offered or courses that you offered, that's $100,000. You don't need to be reaching 10 million people to make a 6-figure income. And our audience for How to Film Weddings is somewhere around 10 to 15,000 downloads a month. It's not even this massive thing. And that's why we want the average person that has a great idea and is willing to put in the work, we want them to be able to succeed. And we have started to see dozens of people sending us messages about how they're monetizing with their podcasts and how they're growing. And so we have goals for you this week. And Nick, the first goal is we want them to help them realize their potential with their podcast. How many of you out there realize you have potential with your podcast? Post in the comments, I have potential. I want to see it. I love seeing it in the comments. Nick, what's the next one?
Yeah, we want to show you how to generate large sums of wealth. Okay, this is we are not the exception to the rule. Yes, we are making money and we have figured something out, but there are lots of people that are out there making money with their podcast. And if you do it right, you set everything up correctly, you will be able to generate large sums of wealth. John, why don't you cover this one?
The large sums of wealth. Are you wanting me to do that or the impact? Because I could do both. I'll do the impact one.
I just talked about, if you want to add some more wealth, you can.
Generating,
but, I want you to talk about
a guy that thinks that if you can generate wealth, you can change your family tree and you can impact others. I'm able to go with my family and donate and give of my time now because I have generated wealth in my business, and I couldn't do that whenever I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. And so generating large sums of wealth is the precursor to impacting others through your podcast. I'm telling you what, whenever somebody messages us and says, I monetized with my podcast, or my wedding video business is growing and I've made an extra $20,000 this year because of you, John, because of you, Nick, that is way more fulfilling than a $25,000 check hitting my bank account. That's really nice, don't get me wrong. But what's really exciting is when other people's lives are changed. So that is what we want for the goals for this week.
Impact is what it's about. We firmly believe that making an impact and making a statement and making your mark is so huge. Yes, we love making the money and we appreciate that and we want to continue for us. But making an impact, being lasting, having a legacy, having something that will reach others and help others, that is huge for us as well. So the first thing that you need to find is clarity. You need to ask your question, why am I doing this? Why am I making this podcast? Why? You need to have a clear vision with that, because clarity precedes success.
Preach.
And today, we're going to start with gaining clarity on your niche. So clarity precedes success. If you want to be a successful podcaster, okay? If you want to be someone that people look up to, if you want to make an impact, if you want to change other people's lives, if you want to bless other people's lives, if you want to, be someone that has impact, you need to have that clarity. You need to have a really, really good idea, a great idea of what you want to do with your show and how you want to do that. And the way that you start with gaining clarity is to figure out your niche or niche. I'm not sure the best way to say that, but I like saying niche. But there's lots of people that say niche. Okay, so today we're going to talk about your niche and how to gain clarity on that and the things that you should be thinking about when it comes to your niche.
And here's the thing,
John,
when we figured out our niche, we were able to build on that and we're able to grow on that. And that is why this is the first thing that we're going to talk about. Is you might have been podcasting for a while, you might just be getting started, but your niche is so very important to what you are doing in your business and your podcast. And so if you don't know what your niche is, this training is going to supercharge that and help you figure that out. So this is only going to work for you if you're engaged and committed to these challenges, though. And that is what we have to ask you. Are you all in? Are you ready to commit to these challenges so you can help have impact with others? Because that's what it's all about. That's what we're here for. We're doing fine when it comes to our lives. We could just go about our way, but impact is what's important to us. And so in the comments, if you're all in, say, yes, I am all in. Let me know in the comments that you're all in. Nick, pick your niche, my friend. Let's keep going.
Let's do it. Picking your niche. Okay, what happens when your niche is too broad? Okay, what do we mean by that? If you kind of have a fire hydrant, a fire hose of ideas, where on one day you're talking about fitness, and the next day you're talking about finances, and the next day you're talking about movies, and then you go back to fitness, and then you're kind of all over the place. If you are too broad, it's going to be so easy for you to lose focus. Okay, so that's why you niche down. That's why you pick something where you can consistently come back to so that you do not lose focus. Because when you lose focus, man, it's just really hard to keep that flywheel turning. And we're going to talk about that in a couple days, what we mean about that. But it's really hard to keep it going if you lose focus and you do not pay attention to the things that you want to talk about. It is so much
harder to build your tribe, Nick. And that's one thing that we did is we knew that if we could add 5 or 10 people a week to our tribe, well, man, that's 500 people, that's 1,000 people here. That's 1,000 people. And it grows and it compounds, like you were saying earlier, that consistency, it compounds. Most people don't just have overnight success where it's like, oh, we started a podcast and boom, we've got 1 million followers. Like our Instagram following right now for our for How to Film Weddings podcast has 3,000 followers and our downloads are 13 to 15,000 a month. And we have a Facebook group with 8,000 people in it. Those aren't humongous numbers, but they are generating us humongous impact and numbers. And so if your niche is too broad, Nick, it is so much harder to build that tribe. I don't know what I'm in for. I don't know why I'm here or why I'm listening. But if I know what I'm going to get with your podcast, I can say, yes, that's for me, or no, it's not. And it's okay if you're deflecting people that you don't want to be listening to your podcast. It's so hard to build your tribe with being too broad. And Nick, you can talk about getting lost.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing. If your niche is too broad, you're just going to be a bunch of noise. A lot of people, whenever they want to listen to a podcast, how many of you just say, you go to your podcast app and you say, I want to listen to a podcast. So then you just start scrolling and looking around. Like, people don't really do that. They're like, okay, I want to learn more about how to be a better public speaker. So I'm going to look for a podcast about how to be a better public speaker. I want to, work on my fitness. So I need to listen to a fitness podcast. I want to learn how to create a podcast. So I look for how to make a podcast, right? They are specific ideas. And if you are too broad, then people, whenever they're just looking, when they're searching, you're going to get lost and it just becomes noise and you're not able to hang on to your listeners because it's just white noise because you're not talking about anything consistently, right? And so, John, why is it important to niche
First
down?
thing is trust. You have to build trust with your listeners. And so if you are niching down, we niche down to, our two podcasts. One is about wedding filmmaking. One is about podcasting. And when we started talking about wedding filmmaking, we were niched down to that was our niche, wedding filmmaking. And we had to be able to back that up with good content and consistent content. And what that does, one of our main goals with our community was to be a place for newbies and veterans to connect and grow, and not a place for hate and a place for, and being inclusive. And we wanted there to be a safe place for people to go on the internet and gain knowledge. And so what happened with us being consistent over time is people started to really, really trust what we said, because they realized, at first they're like, who are these yahoos? You might be asking the same question right now on this podcast, but as we're talking, some of you might be like, yeah, not for me. But the majority of you, what I'm seeing in the comments is you're starting to see that we are actually just two guys that love our families, that love podcasting, that want to make an impact. And so that builds trust. And whenever you have that trust, there's a lot of things that you can do. And having that trust creates a focus, Nick.
Yeah, it creates a focus of consistency. So whenever you have that trust and people are like longing to hear you and they want to trust you and they want to learn from you and they're asking for you and they want your helpful information, that helps me create consistency. Okay, when I know that people want to learn from me and John, when I know that people want to listen to the things that we have to say, it helps me be way more consistent in the stuff that I am putting out there. It helps me come back to them over and over again because they trust me and I want to prove to them that I am worthy of that trust. And John, you love this one. I'm going to let you talk about it for a second. Why is a niche so important? That pure audience.
I love me some pure audience talk. Thanks for letting me talk about it, my friend. A pure audience is so much more important than a large audience. And I can't stress that enough to you. If you have 20 devoted listeners that are pure and care about your subject, that is way better than 20,000 people listening just for download's sake. The more pure your audience, the better that you will be able to sell the podcast to sponsors in the future. We're going to talk about that obviously this week, but if you have a pure audience, you can really start to generate a lot of revenue and impact in your podcast. So the pure audience is great. And Nick, why don't you show them a few of the numbers from How to Film Weddings over the past few months, past year or so, or even since we got started, I guess so.
Yeah. So since we started How to Film Weddings, again, this is just a wedding videography specific podcast. We launched it in mid-October of 2019. No, 2018. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah, 2018. And we have had 200,000 downloads of this very, very niche podcast to wedding videographers. Okay, how many wedding videographers are there in the world? There's not a lot of us, but we have found that niche. Now, in 2020 alone, we have had 115,000. And you can see right here in the middle, that little April dip there, that was whenever COVID really hit and people kind of stopped tuning out. But before that hit in January and February, we were pushing up towards 20,000 now. As we get into October, we're really trending back up again. And then this was just this morning at 9 a.m. I took the screenshot. We had almost 267, almost 300 downloads by 9 a.m. And that in the West Coast, people weren't even awake yet, to start listening. We're averaging on launch days, about 700 to 850 downloads on launch days. And so we're really trending in the right direction. And that's
if you have a pulse, you probably hate the subject of taxes and running the bookkeeping portion of your business. But like it or not, if you want to be a successful podcaster, you are going to have to pay attention to your numbers. But don't worry, we have the answer for you, Core Financial. Our friends over at Core Financial have taken the pressure off of us so we can focus on what we love doing most, running our podcast. They take care of all of our taxes, monthly bookkeeping, financial plans, and make sure we take full advantage of all of the tax benefits we qualify for. It just feels good knowing we aren't going to get a big surprise during tax season. If you are serious about building a business with your podcast, head on over to howtomakeapodcast.co/core to see what they can do for you.
So you've got everything you need for your podcast. You've recorded your audio and video. You're so excited, but wait, you don't know how to master the audio or edit the video of your podcast. We know someone who can help, the podcast editors. Picture this. You record both audio and video for your podcast. You upload it to your remote editor, and a few days later, your podcast is ready for you to upload and push to the world. What will you do with your extra time? Connect with sponsors? Grow your Facebook group? Start that project or even course you have dreamed of for months? The possibilities are endless. We are blown away by the podcast editors and love working with them and using their services. They can edit audio, video, or both for your podcast. Don't get stuck trying to do this on your own. Get in touch with the podcast editors today. If you'd like to save 50% off of your first project, head over to howtomakeapodcast.co/the podcast editors. Just for how to film weddings.
So
John,
why this is important
Yes.
is not just numbers for numbers' sake, but what it has done for me in my life. And this is where we want to get with you all, is that it's probably, not a month away from you monetizing, but it might be 4 months away. It might be 6 months away. And if you're putting in that work and you have the destination and you know where you're heading, what it has done for me, Nick, and it's been so incredible, is it has just given me margin. I just remember so many months with student loan debt. I had, at one point, my wife and I had nearly $400,000 in student loan debt. We went to a private university, both of us. We did everything wrong that you could think of when it came to our money with our college. We just didn't know. We got into so much debt, and my monthly payments a month for my college was like $1,600 a month at one point, and I was making like $3,000 a month, and it was just like, I don't have room to breathe. I felt like some really heavy weight on my chest. I couldn't get ahead in life. I didn't have margin. At the end of every month, I was hoping to get back to zero for the month. And I don't know if you can relate to that out there. If you've ever been in a position where you don't have money to pay your bills, you don't have money to have groceries, you don't have money to go anywhere or do anything. You're watching life take you or go by and you're not able to do anything. And I didn't have margin. And what this has done for me is it has created so much margin in my life that I've been able to give more than I've ever been able to give before. I've been able to donate my time like I've never been before. I have less stress. My wife and I haven't had any type of an argument over money in years at this time, because when we need something, we write a check and we have it. We have plenty of money in our bank account. And again, this is not a flex, but it is hopefully inspiration for you that, if you're in the middle of arguments with your spouse or significant other, or if you're stressed, you can get out of that with something like podcasting. The world is your oyster when it comes to podcasting. More freedom to do what I want with my family. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I bought a new home and I just took the week off. I wanted to be with the family. I wanted to clean. I wanted to just enjoy the home. And I just stayed home. I didn't have to answer to anybody, and money still poured in. We made almost $20,000 the week I took off. It just continues to pour in, and we're going to show you exactly how we do that. But the margin, if you could use margin in your life, say, I want margin. Put it in the comments. Let us know. I get on the soapbox. I'm going to step back down. Hopefully that was helpful a little bit for you guys, but Guys, this can change your life. And if you want margin, it's not the easy road. A lot of people don't take this. A lot of people have 5 podcasts and then they stop. But we will show you how to do it. We're going to show you how to create margin. We want this for you. Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When we're talking about impact, like this is what we want for you. And so we want to show you, the ways that you can do this. Now the question is, we want this for you, but if you don't want this for you, guess what? It's not going to happen. Okay. We can want this for you all you want. We can share you all this information about how we're able to sign, $10,000 contracts with sponsors and that sort of stuff. But if you don't want it for you, then it's not going to happen. So the question is, do you want all of this, what we're talking about, do you want this for you? John, this has been huge. A pure audience has changed the game for us. You guys, you want to know why it has changed the game for us? Okay. Why it has changed the game for us is because of sponsors. Absolutely, sponsors. We have signed several $10,000 contracts with sponsors to sponsor our podcast. And again, we're only getting, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 downloads a month. Okay. We're signing these big deals and our pure audience is a big reason for that. Right.
Big.
So, John, why don't you, I'll talk about this. You talked a while about the margin thing, which is all so good stuff because I know that I want more and more of that margin in my life. Having a pure audience has changed the game for us because brands that sell products to wedding filmmakers absolutely love us. One of our sponsors is a company that edits wedding videos. That's all they do. They edit wedding videos. And so they signed a contract with us. We started promoting them, and 90% of our listeners, because we probably have about 10% or so that are other wedding professionals, but 90% of our listeners are wedding videographers. We almost broke their business because so many people were reaching out to them. Okay, they love us because they would much rather have, 10,000 people that, yep, okay, those are going to be the people that I am going to want to work with, rather than spending tons and tons of money, on like something maybe like the radio, where only like 5% of the people that are listening to it are going to actually be their client, or even less. So sponsors love us because we are such a pure audience. Okay, talking about that same thing, the target marketing, we have their audience in hand. Okay, we are saying, hey, here is your audience, your wedding filmmakers. This is us. More sale for advertisers equals more length in contract. John, why don't you chat about this for a second?
So like Nick was saying, with this company, that edits wedding films for us, we were the exact niche. Like you couldn't be a better advertiser, like we are the best option for them. And so we were the exact target market. And then we are literally generating 6, if not 7 figures for them with our small niche podcast. So they're willing to pay us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month over time. I mean, they are consistently every month dropping thousands of dollars on ads in our podcast. And the more sales are equaling more length. They are eager to sign for 3 more months of sponsorships or 6 more months. And as we grow and as our audience grows and as we have the proof to show, yeah, we know that you're generating this much because of us, they're not going to go anywhere if we raise our prices some. Like, they would be dumb for them. If we moved from $3,000 to $4,000 a month, they're going to be like, okay, we're going to stay on. It's just worth it for us. And so more sales for more advertisers. It's great because you get paid more, but you get more length in the contract. And then when you have those proven sales for the advertisers, it's basically ammunition to book more sponsors. It's social proof. And so like our company that edits wedding films, Wedditor, that we have as a sponsor, we have them on our press kit that we send to new sponsors with a quote saying, this has been the best investment that we could have ever made into our business. And we have all this information and data backing it up, where they'll come on or they'll answer questions for other sponsors for us because they're that excited about what we're doing for them. Now, if you're a toothpaste company, you might not want to market with us. I mean, we have people that all brush our teeth, but like that's not the thing. The thing here is weddings. We're talking about weddings. And so with our podcast company, How to Make a Podcast, we have Zencast, who is a company that you can upload and host your podcasting, your podcast, a platform, and they're adding more people to their podcast platform because we have a niche audience of podcasters. And so proven sales for advertisers equals more ammunition. And then Nick, this is the big misconception. I'm going to let you talk about this big misconception.
I'm sure that so many of you have heard this or thought this yourselves, but do you believe that you need a huge following and a broad niche to monetize? Some big podcasters out there, like Jenna Kutcher, someone like that, she just has a huge following and she kind of talks about all sorts of stuff, kind of business. And how many of you believe that? Okay. How many of you think that you have to have a huge following and a broad niche to monetize? Well, John and I are proof that this is not true. Right, John? It's cool.
Yes.
It's cool. We are proof that that is not the case. Okay, we might think this. It's because we doubt ourselves and we don't have that confidence, but that is a huge misconception in our industry. Okay, so what we want to do right now is here's the first part of our challenge, okay? And we want you to write this down, and we're going to tell you what to do at the end of the podcast. But it all starts with niching down. You want to have these sponsors. You want to have these, this clarity. You want to have this success, and it all starts with niching down your podcast. The very first thing that you need to do, okay? Write, what are you passionate about? Okay, think of the things that you are passionate about. Whenever John and I got started and we decided to launch our How to Film Weddings podcast, we were both passionate about wedding videography. John had started his company in 2008. I had started mine in 2012. So we had been doing it for quite a while and we were very, very passionate about it. But then the next thing when selecting our niche, yes, we were passionate about wedding videography, but were we proficient in it? John, what do we mean by that?
Did we know what we were talking about? I might be passionate in something, but if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I don't have value to add for that subject, nobody's going to care. How many of you guys have seen someone on your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed that's a life coach, that's 19 years old, that has lived no life at this point, really, that is trying to teach people how to live their life, and it just comes across as disingenuous? Like, maybe that works for people that they're a few steps ahead of, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It's not proficient. If I started trying to teach you about how to apply makeup, I don't know how to do that. This pretty face just looks like this when I wake up in the morning and I put a nice light above me. I know nothing about how to do anything to do with makeup. So you have to be passionate, but you also have to know, you have to be proficient in what it is. So what are you proficient in? What do you know a ton about? What do people ask you about? What is there out there that you always find yourself talking about and you're proficient in? And then, Nick, the last thing that you popped up there is, can it be profitable? In most cases, yes, it can if you're passionate and you're proficient. Is there a way to make a subject profitable? It doesn't have to be a how-to kind of podcast like we're doing. It could be a real estate podcast, or you're a banker and you want to do a podcast about your city, or, we have people that niched way down and they have a podcast just for their city and they're getting sponsors that are, people listening into their small city. But can you make profit with it? Can you be a window washing company and talk to other window washers about washing windows and make money doing that? You're proficient, you're passionate, you're profitable. So those are things you need to be looking at whenever niching down with your podcast. And Nick, that beautiful yellow golden ring is the sweet spot. Talk to them about the sweet spot.
The sweet spot, yes. So the thing that you need to be thinking about is whenever it comes to monetizing your podcast and making money, like how John and I have made money with the podcast, is these three things have to overlap. You can be very passionate about something and want to have a good idea of how to be profitable profitable about it. But like John's saying, if you're a 19-year-old and you're like, I'm going to be a life coach and I'm going to tell other people, that are in their 40s and have children and all this stuff, how to live life, like you're not very proficient about that, right? So where these things need to cross, there are going to be some things that you are very passionate about and you are very proficient about, but there's not much profit in it. Or there might be something that you are very, very good at. You are very proficient at, okay? You can make a lot of money doing it, but you don't like doing it. How many people have done that? They talk about their 9-to-5s or whatever, and they're just like, yeah, I'm good at it. I make a lot of money doing it, but I'm not passionate about it. And the best way for you to niche down, the best way for you to continue to move forward in your podcast is where those three overlap. That is where you are going to find your clarity. That is where you are going to make your impact. That is where you will be able to eventually generate wealth.
I love this stuff, Nick. This gets me fired up.
Long-term thing. Once you talk about this, the long-term thinking is your idea of fad.
I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I should start a podcast. And then they just start a podcast. And then they're like, I'm 2 months in and I have no new ideas for content. I have no direction. And you have to look at this, especially if you want to do what we're trying to show you and how to make a profitable podcast, is you have to have long-term thinking. Like I mentioned earlier, Nick and I were willing to put in 2 years of work before making a penny. And what happened whenever we got monetized 6 or 7 months in, it made it feel like a huge win early. But that long-term thinking in the back of your mind the whole time, what decisions do you need to make now to be successful in 2 years from now? Like 2 years will come and go and it'll be 2022 just like that. And maybe it doesn't take 2 years. There's no magic number, that's not like a magic number. But by putting something out there in front of you, that helps to give you the clarity that you need. You think about the people that make it through like the prisoner of war situations. They're not the ones that think they're going to get out of there in day one. They're the ones that are thinking, I'm going to be here a long time. I've got to survive a long time. And no, this is not a prisoner of war situation, but it all comes down to long-term thinking. What are you thinking about when it comes to yourself and your podcast?
Yes, absolutely. And John mentioned that earlier, but that's how we thought whenever we started How to Film Weddings. John was like, you know what? I think that we can be big. I think that we can make money. I think that this can replace our current wedding video income. I see all that, but it's like, it's going to be 2 years before we write ourselves a check. Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to commit? And we have done all of this stuff that we talked about earlier in our podcast. We committed. We said, yes, we are going to do it. And we knew we just took that step. Okay. So here is your challenge for today. We want you to use the perfect podcast challenge group that all of you are hopefully are in. And what we want you to do is to head over there, just introduce yourself again. If you want to, you can either do a video of this or you can do, just type it out. But we want you to list the things. What are you proficient about? What are you passionate about? What's profitable? And what is your niche? And why don't you just tell the Facebook group? The way you are way more likely to follow through with something if you actually write it down. Okay, so we just want you to go into the group later today before the challenge tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time, and we just want you to write down what your niche is. Okay, that's it. It's easy. But it's step one of this challenge that will get you to move forward.
You may not know, John, may not know your exact niche, but what we would encourage you to do is to write down what you think the niche would be, or maybe like 1 or 2 topics, something that gets you out of just idea phase into action phase. It reminds me of when I started a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. My good friend Ryan was like, you need to start a YouTube channel talking about money and talking about finance. And I was planning to do it forever. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And he's like, you need to set an August 1st launch date. And I was like, oh. He's like, you need to know what it's going to be by August. You need to give yourself a deadline. And I did that, and I started it in August, and now it's growing and it's going. And that's kind of where we're at with you guys, is like, you can sit here and think, oh, I want to do a podcast. But if you don't write down like a niche or a few niches and post it in the group, you're not going to be accountable to anybody. And that's fine, but you're going to be the same person tomorrow, the same person next year that you are today. And we want you to get out of the passenger seat and start driving and start going. And that is going to be writing down your niche. putting it in the Facebook group, getting involved, get uncomfortable. Because I'll tell you this, Nick, it wasn't comfortable for about 2 years there but you know what's really comfortable now is cashing those checks and making that impact on people. That's real comfortable. My wife likes that a lot, and so do my kids, and so does my family, and so do the people that we're helping. But you don't get six-pack abs by not going to the gym. You don't win in life without going and putting in the work. So take those action steps, write those, post them in the Facebook group. I tell you, I don't like Facebook except for Facebook groups. So if you're not a Facebook person, be a Facebook person for a week and just join in on the group if you're on Zoom and just post those things in the group. Okay, I'm done chatting.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's your challenge for the day. We want to push this one more time. So at 2 o'clock in just about 2 hours Central Time, we are going to go live in our VIP group. I know so many people are asking so many questions, but when we have like close to 300 people on here, just constantly talking, we really can't get to those. This VIP group is designed for us to go a little bit deeper and to talk with our students a little bit further and to answer their one-on-one questions. So if you are interested in becoming a VIP, head over to this website, perfectpodcastchallenge.com/VIP opt. And there you can sign up to be a VIP and you will have lifetime access to these videos. You'll get us for an hour, so we'll chat with you every day. And then we're going to give you some other bonuses later in the week that we will let you know what they are. So that's the pitch for the VIP group.
I posted the link in the Zoom and the Facebook for that VIP group, and we're talking there's thousands of people in this group, and a lot of people are like, are you seeing all the questions that are coming in? And it's like, yes. We try actually not to look at them so we can stay on point, because I'm like a dog when I see a squirrel, and I'm just like, oh, questions. I need to, and we want to be as proficient with our time with you as possible. So that VIP group, $67, and it gives you the lifetime access to these videos. So when they go down at midnight on Friday, you get to keep them forever. You get a lot of extra bonuses. And then Nick and I are just Q&A style for an hour, up to an hour with you in that group. So we're going to have that available today and maybe tomorrow. It's getting pretty full. So we want it to be really small so we can answer your specific questions if that's something that you want. Not necessary. You don't have to do it. But if you're interested in that, click that link. We're excited to see you guys at 2 p.m.
We really hope that you found this information really valuable and helpful to your podcast. If you'd like more information about the podcast blueprint, head over to thepodcastblueprint.co. There you can sign up for our waitlist for when we release this course again. It is going to help your podcast so much. That's thepodcastblueprint.co. And until next time, we will see ya.